15 years ago, you stole my biological son and cast me out with the infant you loathed. Now, I have returned as the one who holds the power to orchestrate your entire downfall, to force you to your knees, to mourn the fate I have swapped right before your very eyes. Before the story begins, comment where you're from, city or country. I'd love to know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so this channel can continue to grow. The New York City air still felt the same, humid, carrying the distinct scent of damp earth after the rain. But for Helena, every breath here felt like inhaling shards of glass. 15 years ago, under this same sky, she was dragged out of the grand Arrington family estate under the most repulsive accusation a wife could face: adultery, while her husband was out of town. She was thrown out like trash without a dollar, without a defense, with only a baby in her arms whom Eleanor, her mother-in-law, had branded a bastard child. Now, Helena stood before a large mirror inside a luxury car parked directly in front of the Grand Astoria Hotel ballroom. She was no longer the pitiful woman with tangled hair and shabby clothes. The Helena of today wore a perfectly tailored navy blue blazer that accentuated her now strong and upright shoulders. Her gaze was cold, as sharp as a blade honed over years of suffering. "Mom, we've arrived." A gentle voice broke Helena's reverie. Helena turned. Beside her sat Leo, the son she had raised with her own sweat and tears in a foreign land. Leo was a handsome, polite 15-year-old with a calming presence in his eyes. He had no idea that his true identity was the key to the storm Helena was about to unleash. Leo was the child she had raised with all her love, even though she knew, biologically, he was the fruit of her husband's betrayal with another woman. But in Helena's eyes, Leo was her fortress. "Are you ready, sweetheart? Remember, stay close to me. Don't say much, just observe," Helena instructed, straightening the collar of Leo's shirt. "I'm ready, Mom. Whatever you do, I support you," Leo answered sincerely. Helena gave a small nod. Beside Leo was Maya, her best friend and business partner, who for the past 10 years had helped her build a real estate empire overseas. Maya was a supportive figure, but she was also the only person who knew the true darkness of the vengeance Helena harbored. "Remember our plan, Helena. Don't let your emotions explode in front of the cameras. We are here as Apex Investments. You are the savior of their nearly bankrupt foundation," Maya whispered, offering reinforcement. Helena didn't reply. She only offered a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. The car door was opened by a chauffeur. Helena stepped out, followed by Leo and Maya. The flash of cameras immediately greeted them. Tonight was the fundraising gala for the Arrington Family Foundation, a non-profit organization that was the pride of her former mother-in-law. The foundation was on the brink of collapse due to an internal corruption scandal, and they needed a major investor to launder their reputation and restore their finances. As Helena stepped into the ballroom, the previously bustling atmosphere of high society chatter suddenly fell silent. Helena's presence radiated an undeniable aura of authority. At the far end of the room, on a small stage, stood the very people Helena wanted to destroy. Eleanor. The old woman still looked arrogant in a silk gown and excessive diamond jewelry. Beside her stood Adrian, Helena's ex-husband, looking older with lines of anxiety etched on his face, and Jessica, the woman who was once Adrian's mistress and now played the part of the haughty hostess. Helena walked slowly. Each click of her heels on the marble floor seemed to count down to their destruction. When they were only 10 feet apart, Eleanor narrowed her eyes, trying to recognize the figure before her. "Good evening, Mrs. Arrington. My apologies for being slightly late," Helena said in a low but powerful voice. Eleanor's face, once plastered with a fake smile for the guests, suddenly turned pale. The champagne flute in her hand trembled violently. She stared at Helena from head to toe. It can't be." Adrian, standing behind his mother, nearly choked, his eyes wide in disbelief. "Helena, is it really you?" Jessica, sensing the awkward situation, tried to take control. As Adrian's legal wife now, she felt she had a territory to defend. "Who are you people? This is a private event for major donors." "Security. How did strangers get in?" Maya stepped forward before security could approach. "Strangers? I believe you're misinformed, Mrs. Arrington. Allow me to introduce Miss Helena, the CEO of Apex Investments, the primary investor who has already signed a grant commitment of $50 million for this foundation. If you want us to leave, that funding leaves with us. The room froze. Eleanor would have collapsed if Adrian hadn't quickly supported her. She looked at Helena with a fear that began to creep into her eyes, a fear of the past she had buried so deeply, now risen before her with even greater power. Helena, how did you become like this? Adrian's voice trembled. There was a faint note of regret, but it was mostly dominated by disbelief. Helena looked at Adrian without a shred of the love that once filled her heart for him. She saw him as a weak, cowardly man who had allowed his wife to be cast out without proof. The world turns, Adrian, and it seems the world has brought me back to see how you've managed the blessings you stole from me. Helena's eyes then shifted to Eleanor. She saw the old woman's hands were still shaking. Mrs. Arrington, I hear this foundation focuses on the welfare of children. How noble. I'd like to see firsthand how you educate the children under your care. Is it as good as the way you educated me? The sentence was like a hard slap to Eleanor's face. She knew exactly what she had done 15 years ago, about the baby boy she had swapped to fulfill her ambition of having a male heir from her own bloodline, without a care that she had switched Helena's biological child with another. Suddenly, a teenage boy emerged from backstage. He wore messy clothes and a sullen expression. It was Ryan, the boy Eleanor had always considered her biological grandson, when in fact he was Helena's son, switched at birth. Ryan yelled at a waiter because his drink wasn't cold enough, displaying his terrible temper. Helena saw Ryan. Her heart ached with a pull she couldn't explain. That was the child she was supposed to cradle, the child who should have grown up with her love, now a rebellious teenager, in the hands of the cold-hearted Jessica and Eleanor. Helena took a deep breath, suppressing the emotional turmoil that nearly shattered her professional mask. She turned and looked at Leo, who stood calmly beside her. She compared the polite Leo with the rude Ryan, a deeply painful irony. Mrs. Arrington, Helena spoke again, her voice now as cold as ice. I've decided not to just provide funds. As the primary investor, I will be placing my audit team in the foundation's office starting tomorrow morning. I want to ensure that every dollar I give doesn't vanish like this family's integrity did in the past. Eleanor wanted to protest, but her desperate financial situation left her powerless. She could only swallow the bitter saliva in her throat. Of course, Helena, you are our guest of honor. Not a guest, Helena corrected sharply. I am the owner of this foundation's future, and perhaps the owner of all of your futures. Helena turned, leading her entourage out of the room without a backward glance. Inside the car, as the doors closed, Helena's composure crumbled. Her hands gripped her own knees until her knuckles turned white. Mom, are you okay? Leo held Helena's hand, feeling the cold sweat on his mother's palm. Helena looked at Leo with eyes full of pain. I'm fine, Leo. I just realized that revenge comes at a very high price. Helena closed her eyes. She had just decided to re-enter the vicious circle of that family. She knew the risks. She knew that starting tomorrow, she would have to watch her biological son, Ryan, be mistreated by Jessica, while keeping that truth from Leo so her plan wouldn't fall apart. She had made a small but risky decision. She wouldn't just be a remote investor. She would move into the old house near Eleanor's residence, challenging the ghosts of the past head-on. Maya, Helena called without opening her eyes. Cancel our hotel reservation. We're moving into the old house on Magnolia Lane, right across from their gate. Maya gasped. That's too close, Helena. They could be watching you at all times. Let them, Helena replied coldly. I want Eleanor to lose sleep every time she sees the lights on in my house. I want her to feel me watching her, even in her dreams. That night, in the city that had once cast her out, Helena took her first step to reclaim what was rightfully hers, even if it meant sacrificing the last of her inner peace. Helena's decision to occupy the old house directly across from the Arrington estate was not without reason. Every morning, from behind the sheer curtains of the second-floor window, Helena could observe the activity in the house that had once been her emotional prison. She saw Adrian's car come and go. She saw the same busy household staff, and she saw the shadow of her own tormented past there. This morning, Helena's heart beat faster as she saw a teenage boy, Ryan, storm out of the house with a backpack slung carelessly over his shoulder. Ryan appeared to be yelling at a driver because his car wasn't warmed up in time. He was raised on anger, Helena whispered to herself, her hand touching the cold window pane. A wave of guilt washed over her. If she hadn't been framed and thrown out 15 years ago, would Ryan have grown up to be a calmer young man, like Leo? "Mom, breakfast is ready." Leo's voice came from behind the door. Helena quickly pulled her hand from the glass and turned, forcing her most serene smile. "Yes, sweetheart, I'll be right down." In the dining room, Leo had neatly arranged scrambled eggs and toast. Maya was there, busy with her tablet. The atmosphere in this house felt warm, a stark contrast to the cold air emanating from the house across the street. However, the calm was shattered when Maya looked up with a serious expression. "Helena, Jessica is making a move," Maya said bluntly. "She's invited several officials' wives and foundation board members for a morning tea at the Crestwood Country Club. The unspoken message is that she's going to clarify who the new donor really is." Helena slowly sipped her tea. She knew clarification was a polite term for character assassination. She feels threatened. Jessica has never had anything that was truly her own. The position she holds now was stolen, so she's terrified another thief will come to take it. "Are you going?" Maya asked, hesitant. "This could be an emotional trap." "I have to go, Maya. If I hide, the accusations from the past will remain the truth in their eyes. I have to show them that the mud they threw never truly stuck to me," Helena replied in an undeniable tone. The luxurious country club was filled with glamorously dressed women whose perfumes saturated the air. When Helena entered with Maya, the room fell silent. Jessica, standing in the center of a circle of socialites, immediately put on a faux look of concern. "Oh, look who it is!" Jessica's voice was shrill, loud enough for everyone to hear. She approached Helena with a forced, elegant stride. "Welcome, Helena. Or should I call you Miss Investor? We were just discussing how fortunate our foundation is to receive help, even though we all know your history in this town." Helena stood tall, her face impassive. "History is a matter of perspective, Jessica, and perspective usually depends on who controls the narrative." Jessica let out a hollow laugh, her eyes glinting with hatred. "Narrative? Helena, everyone here still remembers how you were thrown out by Eleanor for bringing another man into the house while Adrian was away. Isn't it shameful to return here with money from God knows where after committing such an act of adultery?" A few women around them began to whisper. Helena could feel the old wound reopening. The shame, devastation, and despair of that night came crashing back. She remembered prostrating herself at Adrian's feet, begging her husband to believe that the man in her room that night was a setup. But Adrian had only looked at her with disgust. But Helena was no longer that weak woman. She took a deep breath, steadying the tremor in her hands. "Adultery." Helena repeated the word with an almost pitiful tone. "It's quite funny to hear that word from the mouth of a woman who was my husband's mistress for years while I was still his legal wife. If we want to talk about morals, Jessica, let's start with how you moved into that house before my side of the bed was even cold." Jessica's face turned beet red. You're just trying to change the subject. Everyone knows you were kicked out for being dirty." Helena took a step closer, causing Jessica to instinctively step back. "Listen carefully. I was cast out because of a very amateurishly crafted lie, and today I'm back not to apologize for something I never did. I'm here to audit the foundation you run with the same amateurishness you used to frame me." Helena pulled a small folder from her bag and placed it on the center table, right in front of Jessica's teacup. "This is a preliminary report from my audit team, who worked through the night. There's a $2 million discrepancy in the annual report you signed, Jessica. As the primary investor, I have every right to report this as felony embezzlement," Helena said calmly, but her voice carried explosive power. The whispers in the room changed direction. Now, the guests' eyes were on Jessica with judgmental stares. Jessica trembled, looking for support from her friends, but they all turned away. "You think you can buy honor with money?" Jessica shrieked desperately. "Honor isn't bought, Jessica. It's built on integrity. Something you didn't have when you took another woman's husband. and something you don't have when you use foundation money to buy that designer bag you're carrying now. Helena glanced at Jessica's handbag with a look of disdain. That bag is worth the operating cost of an orphanage for 3 months. How ironic for the chairwoman of a charity. Helena turned, signaling Maya to leave. She had won this battle, but her heart still felt heavy. The victory was hollow because at the far end of the room, she saw Eleanor standing in the doorway, staring at her with pure hatred. Eleanor didn't speak, but her eyes promised a more vicious attack to come. Upon returning home, Helena found Adrian standing in front of her gate, looking agitated. "Helena, please don't attack Jessica like that in public." "She's still my wife," Adrian said as Helena got out of her car. Helena looked at her ex-husband with indescribable disgust. "She's your wife, but she used my name for ridicule." "Where were you 15 years ago when your mother dragged me into the street, Adrian? Where was your defense?" "I just want us all to be calm. My mother is old, she can't handle this scandal," Adrian pleaded weakly. "Your mother can't handle a scandal, but she was strong enough to destroy my life." Helena laughed bitterly. "Go away, Adrian. If you want to save your wife, teach her to shut her mouth. Because if she mentions the word adultery one more time, I will personally ensure she sleeps behind bars for embezzlement." Adrian hung his head and walked away defeated. However, a new pressure arose when Helena entered the house. She found Leo standing in the living room, holding an old photograph that had fallen from one of Helena's storage boxes. It was a photo of a pregnant Helena. "Mom," Leo's voice trembled, "why do you look so sad in this picture? And who is this man next to you? Why does he look like the man who was just talking to you at the gate?" Helena froze. She wasn't ready to explain to Leo who his father was, let alone the fact that he wasn't her biological son. But seeing the curiosity in Leo's eyes, Helena realized she had just opened a dangerous Pandora's box. "That's just the past, Leo." "A past that's dead and gone," Helena answered curtly, trying to take the photo. "But it seems like that past wants to come back to life, Mom," Leo retorted sharply. Helena realized that by living right across from Eleanor's house, she was not only threatening her enemies, but also risking the one thing she loved most, Leo's trust. She made another small, risky decision. She would continue to involve Leo in the Foundation's affairs, hoping he would see the family's rottenness for himself before the truth about his identity was revealed. But she didn't know if Leo would still be on her side once he knew who his real mother was. Leo's question from the previous night about the man in the photo, Adrian, still hung in the air like a thick, stubborn fog. Helena had spent the night with her eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling and touching her now flat stomach. 15 years ago, a life she had guarded with all her being had been in there, only to be ripped away by the hands of those she had once considered family. The greatest irony of her life was the young man who had just placed a warm cup of milk on her desk. Leo was not the fetus she had once lovingly caressed in her womb. "You didn't get enough sleep again, Mom." Leo stood in the doorway of Helena's home office, his gaze filled with sincere concern. "If you're tired because of the Foundation business, let me help organize the files. You should rest for a bit." Helena looked at Leo. The boy's face was so pure, reflecting the empathy and discipline she had instilled in him. Yet, biologically, Leo was the son of Jessica, the woman who had destroyed her marriage. Helena often asked God if this was a blessing or a curse. She had raised her enemy's child to be an extraordinary human being, while she had no idea what had become of her own biological son in the hands of those cruel people. "I'm fine, Leo. Just a lot on my mind," Helena replied, closing the audit report folder. "Today I have to go to the Arrington Family Foundation office. You're coming with me. I want you to start learning how to deal with people who are only sweet on the surface." Leo nodded obediently. "Of course, Mom. I'll get ready." Helena grabbed her bag, steeling her heart. Today wasn't just about a financial audit. Today was about finding the missing piece of her soul. The headquarters of the Arrington Family Foundation looked grand with its large white pillars, but to Helena, the building felt like a whitewashed tomb. In the lobby, she was met with displeased looks from the staff, who had clearly been influenced by Jessica. Not far from the reception desk, a commotion broke out. A teenage boy was yelling at an elderly woman, one of the orphanage administrators, who was trembling. I told you, I don't want this stupid boxed lunch. I want a steak. Are you deaf? The teenager shouted. He then kicked a stack of lunchboxes, sending their contents scattering across the clean marble floor. Helena stood frozen. The teenager was Ryan, the boy she had glimpsed at the gala. From this close, Helena could clearly see his jawline, so similar to his father's. But his wild, hate-filled eyes were the product of Eleanor and Jessica's misguided upbringing. "Ryan, watch your tone." Jessica appeared from a hallway, but instead of firmly reprimanding her son, she approached him with a sickeningly indulgent tone. "If you don't like it, sweetie, Mommy will order you something from a restaurant. Don't shout, you'll hurt your throat." "You took forever, Mom. I hate this place. It's full of poor, smelly people," Ryan grumbled, then deliberately stepped on the spilled food before walking away. Helena's heart felt as if it were being squeezed by a giant hand. "That's my son," her mind screamed. "My own flesh and blood, whom I prayed every night would grow up to be a good man, has become a little monster with no manners." Ryan passed Helena without a hint of respect. When their shoulders brushed, Ryan glared. "Move, you're blocking my way." Leo, standing beside Helena, gently but firmly stopped Ryan by the shoulder. "Hey, speak to my mother respectfully. You almost ran into her." Ryan turned, looking Leo up and down with a condescending sneer. "Who are you to tell me what to do in my grandmother's building? Get lost, you nobody." Leo was about to retort, but Helena's hand gripped his arm, stopping him. Helena looked deep into Ryan's eyes. Behind the arrogance, she saw emptiness. Ryan hadn't been raised with love, but with limitless ego-stroking. Jessica, seeing the interaction, hurried over. "Oh, Helena, I'm so sorry. My son Ryan is just a bit expressive. He's the sole heir to this family, so it's natural he has high standards." Helena controlled her ragged breath. "High standards are not the same as being rude, Jessica. If you call that behavior expressive, then you've not only failed as a foundation director, but you've failed completely as a mother." Jessica's face tightened. "You have no right to talk about raising children. Who is this young man anyway? The product of your affair after you were kicked out?" Jessica pointed at Leo with her manicured red nail. Leo looked offended but remained calm for his mother's sake. Helena smiled faintly, a smile laced with poison. "His name is Leo. He's a son I'm very proud of. He's an international math Olympiad champion, fluent in 3 languages, and most importantly, he knows how to respect other human beings. Something it seems you could never teach Ryan, even if you had a mountain of gold." Helena then turned from Jessica and looked at Ryan, who was still standing nearby. "Ryan, remember my face. One day, you'll realize the world doesn't revolve around satisfying your desires, and when that day comes, the person you hate the most might be the only one who can save you." Ryan just scoffed and walked out of the building. Helena closed her eyes for a moment. The pain was so real. Seeing the devoted Leo on one hand and the broken Ryan on the other, the irony was suffocating. She loved Leo as her son, yet he was the seed of the woman she was currently humiliating. Conversely, she desperately wanted to embrace Ryan as her own, yet he looked at her with disgust. Later that afternoon, Helena was in the Foundation's audit room, having demanded all original files be brought there. In the middle of the document piles, Eleanor entered with slow but authoritative steps. The old woman closed the door behind her. "Helena," Eleanor called, her voice no longer shrill like at the gala, but heavy with a hidden threat. "What are you really looking for? If it's about money, name your price. Stop interfering with how we raise my grandson." Helena didn't look up from her files. "Your money isn't enough to buy my interest, Mrs. Arrington. I'm here for the truth. And as for Ryan, you are destroying his future by letting him run wild. He is Adrian's son. He is the blue blood of this family." Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. "He must be strong, he must be feared, so that lowlifes like you can never bring him down." Helena finally looked at Eleanor. "Blue blood? Are you sure? Are you certain the blood flowing in Ryan's veins is the blood you so desire? What if one day that very blood becomes the dagger that stabs you in the heart?" Eleanor fell silent, her eyes flashing with suspicion. She felt Helena knew something, but she wasn't sure how much. "Don't speak in riddles with me." "This isn't a riddle, Mrs. Arrington. This is a warning." Helena stood up, gathering her things. Starting tomorrow, I will be sending a private tutor and a behavioral coach for Ryan. If this foundation wants my funding to continue, Ryan will be under my supervision for 3 hours every day in this office. Eleanor was stunned. You're insane. Jessica would never agree. Then the choice is yours, a $50 million grant and the survival of the foundation, or Jessica's ego. I'll expect your answer tomorrow morning. Helena walked out of the room with a storm of emotions inside her. She had made a huge, risky decision. By bringing Ryan closer, she risked Jessica attacking her even more ferociously. But she had no choice. She had to save Ryan from the demonic upbringing of Eleanor and Jessica, even if she had to do it under the guise of a cold investor. In the parking garage, Leo was waiting in the car. When Helena got in, Leo handed her a bottle of water with the cap already opened. "Drink this, Mom. You look very pale." Helena took the bottle, looking at Leo's clean, deft hands. "Forgive me, Leo," she whispered in her heart. "I have to bring your enemy into our lives to atone for a past sin that wasn't even your fault." The deal was sealed. Although Jessica shrieked in protest and Eleanor stood frozen with a face as white as marble, the power of $50 million from Apex Investments could not be denied. The Arrington Family Foundation had now become Helena's playground, and Ryan, her estranged biological son, was the target of her rescue mission. That morning, Helena arrived deliberately early. She sat in the glass-walled conference room that allowed her to monitor the main corridor. Beside her, Leo was busy helping Maya check the orphanage's inventory reports. Helena watched how Leo meticulously organized stacks of paper, occasionally making small notes in his neat, firm handwriting. Every movement reflected the discipline Helena had instilled in him from a young age. The corridor door was flung open. Ryan entered, dragging his feet, wearing a sloppy school uniform with earbuds blasting music. Behind him, Adrian followed with a tired expression, carrying his son's backpack, which the teenager should have been carrying himself. "Sit there, Ryan. Miss Helena is waiting for you," Adrian ordered quietly, trying to suppress his anger in public. Ryan grunted, slammed himself into a plush chair in front of Helena, and then propped his feet up on the table. 3 hours a day. You think I'm a kindergartner who needs a babysitter? I don't need your money." Helena didn't respond immediately. She looked at Ryan's feet, dirtying her conference table, then turned to Adrian, who stood frozen in the doorway. "Adrian, is this how your respectable family raises its heir? In my office, not even a director would dare put their feet on the conference table." Adrian approached, his face flushing with embarrassment. "Ryan, get your feet down. Now." Ryan laughed mockingly but slowly lowered his feet under Helena's cold, piercing gaze, which felt as if it could see straight into the rot in his heart. "Leo," Helena called calmly. Leo immediately stood from his desk in the corner and came over. "Yes, Mom. Please show Ryan the file he needs to study on basic etiquette and the history of this foundation. Make sure he doesn't touch his phone during this session," Helena instructed. Leo nodded, then looked at Ryan with an expression that was hard to read, a mix of pity and firmness. "Let's begin, Ryan. The sooner you learn, the sooner you can leave." Ryan glared at Leo with hatred. "Don't act like you're in charge, you stray." "His name is Leo," Helena interjected sharply, "and he has a family name far more honorable than the behavior you've displayed today." Adrian, still standing there, was silent as he watched the interaction between the two teenagers. Something was unsettling him. He looked at Leo. The young man had a straight, confident posture, exactly like himself as a young man. Even the way Leo held a pen and the furrow in his brow when he was thinking reminded Adrian intensely of his own teenage photos. On the other hand, he looked at Ryan. Ryan's face resembled his, but his personality bore no resemblance at all. Adrian had been raised with strict manners, while Ryan was the product of Jessica's boundless indulgence. Why did Leo, the boy Helena brought back from overseas, feel more like his son than Ryan did? An hour passed. Adrian didn't leave. Instead, he sat in the outer lobby, observing through a crack in the door. He saw Leo patiently explaining points in the file to a constantly grumbling Ryan. When Ryan threw his pen in frustration, Leo didn't respond with anger. He simply picked up the pen, placed it back in Ryan's hand, and spoke in a very calm yet authoritative tone. That trait, that composure, it couldn't have come from a stranger, Adrian muttered to himself. Suddenly, Eleanor appeared behind Adrian. The old woman had been restless all morning. She saw what Adrian was seeing, and a profound fear began to grip her. Eleanor saw how Helena would occasionally steal glances at Ryan with teary eyes, a look that didn't belong to a cold investor, but to a grieving mother. "Adrian, why are you still here? Let's go. Let the staff watch Ryan," Eleanor urged, her voice trembling slightly. "Mother, look at Leo," Adrian pointed. "Don't you find it strange? The way he talks, the way he thinks. He's so much like me. While Ryan, sometimes I feel like I'm looking at a stranger in my son's body." Eleanor's heart felt like it stopped. This was the time bomb she had feared the most. "Don't talk nonsense, Adrian. Ryan is clearly your and Jessica's son. He's just being rebellious, that's all. Genetics isn't always about personality, it's about lineage." "But Mother—" "Enough! Don't let Helena brainwash you," Eleanor snapped a little too loudly, her voice carrying into the room. Helena emerged from the conference room, looking at the mother and son with a satirical smile. "Is there a problem, Mrs. Arrington? It seems you're quite afraid my son, Leo, will be a bad influence on your precious grandson." Eleanor approached Helena, lowering her voice so Leo and Ryan couldn't hear. "What is your real plan, Helena? You came back here with that boy, then you infiltrated our foundation. Are you trying to plant seeds of doubt in our family?" Helena leaned close to Eleanor's ear, whispering words that made the old woman's hair stand on end. "Doubt only arises when there are lies to hide, madam. If your family is so clean, why do you tremble every time I look at Ryan?" Eleanor took a step back, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She watched Helena go back into the room and sit right next to Ryan, as if wanting to be as close to the teenager as possible. Something inside Eleanor screamed. She had to get Leo out of Adrian's sight before the man started counting back to the birth dates from 15 years ago. Later that afternoon, after the session ended, Ryan stormed out with a flushed face. He ran straight to Jessica's car waiting in the parking lot. Jessica, seeing her son so distressed, got out and confronted Helena, who was walking to her own car. "What did you do to my son?" Jessica yelled in front of the foundation employees. "You're an investor, not a teacher. Don't you dare mess with my son's mental state with your stupid rules." Helena stopped, turning slowly. She saw Leo standing behind her, ready to defend her, but Helena raised a hand, signaling him to stay quiet. "I was just teaching him about self-respect, Jessica." "Something you failed to give him because you were too busy teaching him how to be a parasite," Helena retorted calmly. "You think you're so great because you have money? You're still the adulteress who was thrown out of here. Don't think that by bringing this boy with you, you can get Adrian's attention again," Jessica pointed at Leo with pure hatred. Leo stepped forward. His voice remained polite but carried a threat. "Ma'am, please watch what you say about my mother. If you speak like that again, I will personally ensure the report on your embezzlement reaches the police department today." Jessica was silenced instantly. She looked at Leo with a mixture of fear and a strange sense of familiarity. She saw her own eyes in Leo's sharp and unyielding, but she quickly dismissed the thought. Impossible. Her baby was a boy, and Ryan was a boy. Everything had gone according to Eleanor's plan. Helena got into her car, her mind in turmoil. Seeing Ryan's hatred for her was a torment greater than the poverty she had endured. However, she had noticed something from Adrian and Eleanor's reactions today. The secret was starting to crack. "Mom," Leo called as the car started moving. "Why did that old woman keep staring at me like I was a ghost?" Helena clutched her purse tightly. "Because to them, your presence is a reminder of a sin they thought was buried." "What does that have to do with me, Mom?" Leo asked again, beginning to feel that something was being hidden from him. Helena was silent for a long time. She knew living here would make Leo more suspicious, but she had to take one more bold step to bait Eleanor into making a mistake. "Leo, starting tomorrow, I want you to transfer to the same school as Ryan," Helena said suddenly. Maya, driving in the front, flinched. "Helena, that's too dangerous. Jessica could harm him there." That's exactly where the real battlefield is, Helena replied coldly. I want Leo in their innermost circle. I want Adrian to see Leo every day, to compare his every breath with Ryan's, until that man has no choice but to seek the truth himself. That decision was Helena's biggest gamble. She was placing Leo, the only precious thing she had, right into the wolf's den. Her inner turmoil peaked between the desire to protect Leo and the drive to uncover the truth for Ryan. Helena knew that after tonight, Leo's life would never be peaceful again. A sense of unease had enveloped Helena ever since she enrolled Leo in the same elite school as Ryan. Every time she sent Leo off in the morning, Helena felt like she was throwing a jewel into the mud. But above all, one piece of memory continued to haunt her: the stormy night 15 years ago at Mercy Maternity Hospital. The night Eleanor announced that Helena's baby had been born, but at the same time accused her of adultery and branded the baby a stain. Helena needed a witness, someone not bound by an oath of loyalty to Eleanor's money. "Maya, did you get his address?" Helena asked, staring at the raindrops on the car window. Maya, who was driving, nodded slowly, her face showing concern. On the outskirts of the city, Helena, a slum near the train tracks. His life fell apart after Eleanor fired him 10 years ago. It seems he was deliberately discarded so he couldn't talk. The luxury car finally stopped in front of a narrow, muddy alley. Helena got out, ignoring the dirty water splashing onto her expensive shoes. At the end of the alley, in a nearly collapsed wooden shack, sat an old man with completely white hair. The man was Mr. Miller, the Arrington family's former private driver who used to take Helena for her prenatal checkups. Helena approached, her heart aching at the condition of the man who had always been kind to her. Mr. Miller. The old man looked up, his blurry eyes trying to focus on the beautiful woman before him. When he recognized her face, he flinched so hard he almost fell off his wooden chair. His body trembled violently. "Ma'am?" "Miss Helena." His voice was hoarse, filled with a deep-seated fear. "Go, ma'am, please go." "I don't know anything. Don't hurt me again." Helena immediately knelt in front of the old man, heedless of the dirt on the ground. "Mr. Miller, calm down. I wasn't sent by Mrs. Arrington. It's me, Helena. I'm back. Not to hurt you. I need your help." Hearing Eleanor's name, Mr. Miller cowered even more, covering his face with his rough, wrinkled hands. "Mrs. Arrington," she said, "if I ever talked, she would destroy my family. I've been silent for 15 years, ma'am. I've already lost everything. You lost your job, but I lost my son." Helena's voice rose, filled with the pain she had suppressed for so long. "You were there that night. You drove me to the hospital when my water broke. Please, sir, what really happened when I passed out after giving birth?" "Mr." Miller slowly lowered his hands. He looked at Helena with a deeply guilty expression, and tears began to stream down his hollow cheeks. That night, it was raining so hard. Miss Jessica was there too. She gave birth in the next room, prematurely. Helena held her breath, her heart pounding so hard it rang in her ears. Jessica. She gave birth on the same night? Mrs. Arrington was furious when she found out Miss Jessica's baby was a boy. "But he was weak, Mr. Miller whispered, his voice nearly lost to the sound of a passing train. "But your baby, Miss Helena. He was born healthy. A boy, too, Mrs. Arrington didn't want the heir of her family's blue blood to be born from the womb of Miss Jessica, who was just a mistress. But she hated you too. She ordered me to guard the back door. Tell me, sir, what did Mrs. Arrington do?" Helena pressed, her own tears now flowing freely. She switched them. She paid a nurse to switch your baby with Miss Jessica's. Then she created that whole adultery scenario so you would be cast out and could never claim the healthy baby boy. She wanted Ryan, your biological son, to be entirely hers without you in the picture. The world seemed to collapse on Helena. The truth was crueler than she had imagined. She was cast out not just from hatred, but because she was the perfect factory for a male heir for Eleanor, while her own identity had to be erased so Eleanor could have total control. "And Leo?" Helena asked with a trembling voice. "Leo was the baby Jessica left behind because he was considered flawed and weak back then. Mrs. Arrington had that baby sent to a small orphanage on the outskirts, but somehow you found him again. Mister, Miller sobbed. Forgive me, ma'am. I was scared. Mrs. Arrington has people everywhere. Suddenly, a black car pulled up at the end of the alley. Seeing it, Mr. Miller's eyes widened in terror. He scrambled to his feet, rushed into his shack, and locked the door from the inside. Go, ma'am, they're here. Don't come back, he shouted from within. Helena stood up, wiping her tears away harshly. She saw two burly men get out of the black car, clearly Eleanor's men, sent to monitor his every move. Maya quickly pulled Helena's arm. Helena, we have to go now. This isn't safe, Maya whispered urgently. Helena gave the shack one last look, then stared at the two men now watching her from a distance. The anger that had been a small flame within her now erupted into a raging inferno. She no longer felt sad. She felt cold, very cold. In the car, on the way back, Helena was silent, clutching her phone tightly. She realized that her son's birth wasn't just a case of medical malpractice, but a meticulously planned family conspiracy. Eleanor had stolen Ryan's birthright, manipulated Adrian, and nearly let Leo die in poverty. Helena, what's your plan? Maya asked, after they were a safe distance away. Eleanor thinks she can watch Mr. Miller forever, Helena replied flatly. She's wrong. She's watching him because she's afraid he'll talk. Starting tonight, move Mr. Miller to our safe house out of state. Give him the best protection. He is the dagger I will use to slit Eleanor's pride in court. But that's risky, Helena. Eleanor will know it was you. She'll go after Leo at school, Maya warned. Helena turned to Maya, her eyes glinting sharply. Let her try. Every time she touches a hair on Leo's head, I will destroy one of her foundation's assets. I'm not playing nice anymore, Maya. I am the storm they themselves invited 15 years ago. Helena made a small but risky decision that night. She not only secured Mr. Miller's safety but also sent an anonymous message to Adrian containing a photo of the clinic where they had both given birth. She wanted Adrian to be haunted by an unbearable curiosity. When she arrived home, Helena saw Leo studying in the living room. Leo looked up and smiled sincerely. Mom, where have you been? Your face is smudged with mud. Helena walked over and hugged Leo tightly, tighter than usual. Leo, the son of the woman who destroyed her life, had become the balm for her wounds. The irony was suffocating. But Helena knew Leo was still her son, regardless of whose blood flowed in his veins. As for Ryan, she had to save him, and fast, from the hands of the grandmother who had poisoned his soul. The silence in Helena's house this morning was oppressive, as if the very walls were holding the weight of the secret she had just brought back from Mr. Miller's shack. Helena stood at the kitchen sink, letting the water run over her still trembling hands. In her mind, Mr. Miller's voice echoed. Mrs. Arrington ordered me to guard the back door. She switched the babies. Helena closed her eyes. A wave of nausea swept through her as she realized that for 15 years she had poured all her love into the child of the woman who had taken everything from her. She looked at Leo, who was calmly eating his breakfast at the dining table. Leo, the intelligent and polite young man, was the trash Eleanor had thrown away for being weak. Meanwhile, Ryan, her own flesh and blood, was now a dull, rusty weapon under Jessica's care. "Mom, the water's overflowing!" Leo's gentle voice startled Helena. She quickly turned off the faucet. "Sorry, sweetheart. I was just lost in thought." "Were you thinking about Ryan?" Leo asked suddenly. The question froze Helena. Leo had a sharp intuition that often made Helena feel exposed. "Yesterday at school, Ryan scribbled all over my notebook. He said as long as he has Grandma Eleanor, he can do whatever he wants to me." Helena turned, gripping the edge of the sink until her knuckles turned white. "What did you do, Leo?" "I just picked up my book and told him his grandmother's protection wouldn't last forever," Leo answered calmly. "But Mom, Ryan seems so lonely. Behind all his yelling, he's like someone screaming for help." Leo's words pierced Helena's heart. Screaming for help? Of course he was. Ryan was trapped in a golden cage built on lies. Helena felt an impulsive urge to go over there, hug Ryan, and tell him she was his mother. But her rational mind held her back. If she moved without undeniable proof, Eleanor would easily destroy her again. Meanwhile, in the Grand Arrington residence, the atmosphere was far from calm. Eleanor paced in her study after receiving a report that Mr. Miller had disappeared from his shack. She knew exactly who was responsible. "Jessica!" she shrieked. Jessica entered with an anxious face. Since Helena's return, her position in the house had become precarious. Adrian was starting to ignore her, and Eleanor was yelling at her more often. Helena found Miller. "We don't have much time," Eleanor said in a low, threatening voice. "If Adrian finds out what we did that night, we'll both end up on the street. You know what you have to do." "But Mother, what can I do? Helena has money now. She has power," Jessica whined. Eleanor stepped closer, gripping Jessica's shoulder with her sharp nails. "Use Ryan. Helena has a weak spot for that boy. I've seen the way she looks at him. It's not the look of a stranger. Create a scenario that makes Helena look like the villain in front of Adrian. Make it seem like she wants to kidnap or harm Ryan. Keep him away from that woman at all costs." Jessica nodded quickly, a mad idea forming in her mind. If she could make Adrian believe Helena was a threat to Ryan's safety, he would surely drive Helena out of town for good. That afternoon, in front of Ryan and Leo's school, Jessica executed her plan. Helena was waiting for Leo in her car. When she saw Ryan walking out of the gate alone, looking sullen, Helena got out of the car without thinking. A mother's longing overcame her business logic. "Ryan," Helena called softly. Ryan turned, his eyes glinting with cynicism, but with a hint of curiosity. "What do you want now, Miss Investor? Another lecture?" "I just wanted to give you this." Helena held out a small box containing a healthy lunch she had prepared herself that morning. "I heard you often skip lunch." Ryan looked at the box hesitantly. Just as he was about to reach for it, a shrill scream tore through the air. "Kidnapper! Help! Someone's trying to kidnap my son!" Jessica ran from the parking lot, her face a mask of manufactured panic. She roughly pulled Ryan back, nearly making him fall. "Don't touch my son, you filthy woman! Where are you trying to take him?" Other parents and school security guards immediately crowded around. Adrian, who had just arrived to pick up Ryan on Eleanor's orders, got out of his car with a tense expression. "What's going on here, Jess?" "Adrian, look! Helena was trying to lure Ryan into her car. She wants to kidnap our son out of revenge for taking her place," Jessica cried hysterically, hugging a confused and embarrassed Ryan. "She's a crazy woman, Adrian. She wants to destroy our happiness through Ryan." Adrian looked at Helena, demanding an explanation. "Helena, is what Jessica said true? You have a problem with me. Don't involve Ryan." Helena stood tall in the middle of the crowd. Her heart ached to see Ryan looking at her with hatred, a product of Jessica's incitement. But Helena didn't cry. Instead, she smiled faintly, a smile that made Jessica suddenly stop screaming. "Kidnap?" Helena repeated the word calmly. "Jessica, you seem to watch too much television drama. I was only offering him lunch, and if you want to talk about security..." Helena took out her phone and opened an app, turning the screen toward Adrian and the crowd. "My car is equipped with 360-degree cameras that record all activity within a 10-meter radius, complete with crystal-clear audio. Let's see and hear what really happened." On the phone screen, it was clear that Helena had just been standing there, offering a lunchbox, and Ryan had seemed willing to take it, before Jessica came screaming like a madwoman. More shockingly, Jessica's voice was clearly recorded, whispering to herself before she screamed, "Now it's time to destroy you, Helena." The atmosphere became dead silent. Jessica turned pale, her hands shaking. "Adrian, it's not what it looks like," she stammered. Adrian took Helena's phone, watched the video again, then looked at his wife with a disgust he had never shown before. "You frame her in front of our son's school? You embarrass Ryan just for your own ego, Jessica?" "I was just scared, Adrian. I was afraid she would take Ryan from me." Jessica tried to defend herself, but Adrian wasn't listening. "Enough. Get Ryan in the car. Now," Adrian barked. Ryan roughly pushed Jessica's hand away. He looked at his mother, the woman he had always idolized, with deep disappointment. Then he glanced at Helena for a moment. There was an unexplainable flicker of emotion in the teenager's eyes before he got into the car, slamming the door. Adrian stood before Helena, bowing his head in shame. "Helena, I apologize for Jessica's behavior. She's just been a bit emotional lately." "Emotional is not an excuse for being cruel, Adrian," Helena replied coldly. "You should start wondering, if she could frame me so easily today, what other lies did she whisper in your ear 15 years ago?" Adrian was speechless. Helena's words struck his awakening conscience. Helena turned and got into her car just as Leo arrived. Inside, she rested her head on the steering wheel. This small victory brought her no comfort. Instead, she felt even more guilty toward Ryan for letting him witness this chaos. "You did the right thing, Mom," Leo whispered, taking her hand. "Did I, Leo? I feel like I'm tearing their lives apart, but Ryan is getting hurt in the process," Helena said softly. As they drove past, Helena looked toward Eleanor's house. She knew that after this, Eleanor would launch a more brutal attack. But a small, risky idea formed in her mind. She needed to contact her private lawyer immediately. She couldn't wait for Mr. Miller to testify in court. She had to start baiting Jessica into making an even bigger financial mistake. "Maya," Helena called through the speakerphone, "contact the real estate broker. Tell them we're interested in buying the foundation's asset that Jessica mortgaged at Sterling Bank. I want to pull that orphanage's land out from under them by next week." Helena knew that by taking the orphanage land, she would threaten hundreds of orphans and create a massive scandal for Eleanor. But it was the only way to force Eleanor to her knees and admit who Ryan really was. Helena's inner turmoil peaked. Was she willing to become a villain to restore the truth? The aftermath of the incident at school left a huge crack in the facade of the Arrington family's perfection. Helena sat on her balcony, sipping bitter tea while staring at the gate across the street. She could faintly hear shouting from inside the house. It was nothing new. Since Jessica's manipulation was exposed publicly, the grand mansion had become a war zone. Helena set down her cup. She felt no peace. Although her plan was succeeding, every time she heard Jessica yelling at Ryan from a distance, a part of her soul was torn. She was destroying Jessica, yes, but she was also putting Ryan, her own flesh and blood, at the epicenter of the storm. "Mom, they're so loud I can hear them in my room," said Leo, who had suddenly appeared beside her. He was holding a notebook, but his face was troubled. "Why is Mrs. Arrington always angry with Ryan? Isn't he her son?" Helena swallowed a bitter taste. "Sometimes, Leo, people who feel cornered will bite whoever is closest to them, even their own child." "I feel sorry for Ryan," Leo whispered softly. "At school today, he just sat quietly in a corner. He wasn't yelling anymore. He looked empty." Helena turned her face away, not wanting Leo to see her eyes welling up. Pity was the last emotion she wanted to feel for Ryan. Yet now it was Leo, the boy who should hate Ryan, who felt it. Helena had to end this soon, or Ryan would be broken before she could save him. Across the street, in the luxurious Arrington living room, a plate shattered on the marble floor. Adrian stood, breathing heavily, pointing at a stack of credit card bills scattered on the table. $500,000 in 1 month, Jessica? For bags and jewelry, Adrian's voice thundered. "Our company is in a cash flow crisis because of the audit from Apex Investments, and you're spending money like we own a gold mine." Jessica fought back, her usually beautiful face now rigid with anger. "I need it to maintain our reputation. Why do you think the officials' wives still talk to you after Helena humiliated me at the school?" "It's because I still look high class." "You're a weak man, Adrian. If you can't provide for me, don't blame me." "Weak?" Adrian laughed bitterly. "I was strong enough to endure the shame from that fake kidnapping stunt you pulled. You nearly destroyed Ryan's reputation. Ryan again, always Ryan." Jessica turned toward the staircase where Ryan stood frozen, watching them. "You see that boy? He's becoming just like Helena, a defiant, useless child. I should never have." "Never have what?" Eleanor's cold voice cut in from the hallway. She entered with her cane, her eyes fixed on Jessica. Eleanor knew Jessica had been on the verge of blurting out the secret about the baby swap. "Go to your room, Ryan. Now." Ryan ran up the stairs without a sound. Adrian sank onto the sofa, massaging his temples, mental exhaustion evident in his slumped shoulders. Just then, his phone on the table vibrated. A text from his secretary. "Mr. Arrington. Miss. Helena from Apex Investments has invited you for a private meeting at her office this afternoon. She said it's about saving your company's assets. Adrian stared at the message like a drowning man seeing a life raft. He glanced at Jessica, still ranting, and his mother, still pressuring him. He needed a way out, and ironically, it was being offered by the woman he had thrown away. That afternoon, Helena greeted Adrian in her spacious, minimalist office. She had intentionally arranged the lighting to feel intimidating, yet professional. She wore an all-black outfit, exuding a power Adrian had never imagined. "Sit down, Adrian," Helena said, without offering a handshake. Adrian sat awkwardly. "Thank you for seeing me, Helena. I know things are bad between us, but I need to talk professionally about the foundation and my logistics company." Helena tossed a document in front of him. "Your logistics company is on the verge of bankruptcy, Adrian. My audit found that Jessica has been illegally withdrawing company funds to support her lifestyle and cover losses at the foundation. If the bank finds out, they'll foreclose on your mother's house next week." Adrian's face went pale. "How could you know all that?" "I have eyes everywhere," Helena replied coldly. "I'm offering you a partnership. Apex Investments will inject fresh capital to cover all your debts. In return, I want 51% of your company's shares and full control over the foundation's financial management." Adrian was stunned. "That means you'll control my life." Helena leaned forward, looking Adrian directly in the eyes. "I'm not interested in controlling your messy life, Adrian. I'm only interested in its assets. But you have a choice. Lose everything and let your mother live on the street, or work under my direction and save your family's dignity." Adrian was silent for a long time, the quiet in the room suffocating. He no longer saw Helena as the woman he had loved or hurt, but as the master of his fate. The image of a spendthrift Jessica and a demanding Eleanor made him feel even more disgusted. "Fine," Adrian whispered finally. "I agree, but please, don't let Jessica know about the details of the shares. She'll go insane." Helena smiled faintly, a bitter, triumphant smile. "She'll find out when the time is right. Now, sign this." That night, after Adrian left, Maya entered Helena's office. "You've just ensnared him, Helena. He's now completely dependent on your money. But are you sure this is safe? Bringing Adrian this close could be dangerous for Leo." Helena stood by the window, looking at the city lights. "Adrian has started comparing Leo and Ryan. With him working under me, he'll see Leo more often. I want guilt to eat away at him, slowly, until he begs for a DNA test himself, without me having to ask." "But Jessica won't stand by quietly," Maya warned. "That's my goal. I want Jessica to make another reckless move," Helena replied. Her inner turmoil raged as she returned home. In the living room, she saw Leo teaching math to Ryan, who had apparently slipped into the house through the back door. Ryan looked awkward, but was listening to Leo attentively. "Ryan, why are you here?" Helena asked, trying to keep her tone neutral, though her heart pounded at seeing her biological son in her home. Ryan stood up, his face showing fear. I was just bored at home. Mom and Dad are always yelling. Leo said I could come over." Helena looked at Ryan. The teenager's hair was messy, and there was a red mark on his arm, likely from Jessica's grip during their fight. Helena felt an immense rage, but also fear. If Eleanor found out Ryan was here, she would use it as a weapon to accuse Helena of brainwashing him. "Go back to your house, Ryan. Now," Helena said, deliberately hardening her voice, though her heart screamed to hug him. "But Mom, it's pouring rain outside," Leo protested. "I said go back," Helena snapped, making both teenagers jump. Ryan looked at Helena with a deeply wounded expression. "You're right. You're just like them. You only care about your own rules." He ran out, into the rain. Helena sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. She had just driven away her own son, in his moment of despair, to protect the secrecy of her plan. Her emotional pressure reached a new, agonizing level. She was destroying her enemies, but at the same time, she was killing the affection in her own son's eyes. She made a small but risky decision that night. She would start sending people to physically watch over Ryan's safety inside the Arrington house, even if it meant resorting to illegal surveillance. The remnants of last night's rain still left wet patches on the asphalt, just like the tightness lingering in Helena's chest. The image of Ryan running through the storm after she had harshly sent him away replayed in her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the teenager's wounded look, a look she should never have given her own son. But Helena knew that in that house, the walls had ears. Eleanor and Jessica were surely watching. Helena had to maintain her facade as a heartless stranger, so they wouldn't suspect she knew the truth. That morning, Maya entered Helena's office with a pale face. She wasn't carrying audit reports or shared documents. She was just holding her phone with a slightly trembling hand. "Helena, it's Mr. Miller," Maya whispered. "His condition is critical. He had a heart attack this morning at the safe house. He keeps calling your name. He says there's something he still needs to tell you." Helena's heart sank. Without a second thought, she dropped everything. On the way to the secret clinic on the outskirts of the city, Helena could only pray. Mr. Miller was the last living witness to that cursed night 15 years ago. If he died now, the truth might be buried forever under the concrete of Eleanor's power. When Helena arrived at the small, hidden ward, the sharp smell of antiseptic greeted her. Mr. Miller lay weakly with an oxygen tube in his nose. His sunken eyes slowly opened. Sensing Helena's presence, he moved his trembling hand from under his pillow, pulling out a faded, yellowed brown envelope. "Ma'am," Mr. Miller's voice was barely a whisper, like dry paper rustling. I can't take this to my grave. This is proof. From that night, the nurse Mrs. Arrington paid off. She was terrified and wrote a confession. She gave it to me before she disappeared overseas." Helena took the envelope with cold hands. Inside was a worn piece of paper with hurried handwriting. Its contents shattered what was left of her emotional defenses. "I was forced by Mrs. Arrington to switch Miss Helena's baby boy, born at 11:05 p.m., with Miss Jessica's premature baby boy, born at 11:45 p.m. Miss Helena's baby, Ryan, was given to Miss Jessica to be claimed as her own to preserve the primary male bloodline. Meanwhile, Miss Jessica's weak baby Leo was ordered to be sent to an orphanage, so Miss Helena would have no proof of her husband's progeny." The world around Helena seemed to stop. The beeping heart monitor beside Mr. Miller's bed sounded like a series of explosions in her ears. She sank weakly into a wooden chair, silent tears falling and soaking the old paper. Reality hit her with full force. For 15 years, she had been raising the child of the woman who destroyed her life. Leo, the young man she loved more than life itself, was the biological son of Jessica, the woman who stole her husband and framed her for adultery. And Ryan, the child she yearned for, the child she had just driven out into the rain, was her own flesh and blood, now a broken little monster because of Eleanor's vile upbringing. "Helena." Maya touched her shoulder, her voice full of concern. Helena didn't answer. She just handed the letter to Maya. As Maya read it, her friend gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "My God," Maya whispered. "So Leo is Jessica's son, and you raised him so perfectly while Jessica ruined your own son." "Eleanor," Helena's voice was hoarse, filled with a boiling hatred. "She didn't just switch babies, she switched their fates. She threw Leo away because she thought he was weak, a piece of trash. And she stole Ryan from me just because he was born physically perfect." Helena's thoughts flew to Leo. She remembered how he always kissed her hand before school, how he took care of her when she was sick, and how he had always been her reason to live during her darkest times. An unbearable pain stabbed at her heart. Should she hate Leo? Should she see Jessica's face every time she looked into his eyes? Helena stood up, her breathing ragged. She rushed out of the clinic, ignoring Maya's calls. She needed air. She needed time to process the fact that the motherhood she had embodied was a cruel, twisted irony. Later that afternoon, Helena returned home. She saw Leo in the yard, calmly watering her favorite flowers. The evening sun illuminated his face, making him look so pure. Helena stood at the gate, watching him from a distance. She searched for any resemblance to Jessica. She saw the shape of his nose, the way he furrowed his brow. It all pointed to the fact that Jessica and Adrian's blood flowed in his veins. Leo noticed Helena and immediately stood up with a wide smile. "Mom, you're home! Look, the white roses are in full bloom." Leo walked closer, intending to take Helena's bag, but she reflexively took a step back, her fists clenched. Leo's steps halted, his smile slowly fading, replaced by a look of confusion. "Mom, what's wrong? Did I do something?" Helena looked into Leo's eyes. She didn't see Jessica. She didn't see Adrian. She saw herself. She saw the years they had spent in a tiny apartment. She saw their struggles when they had no money for food. And she saw the sincere love Leo had given her every single day. Suddenly, Helena pulled Leo into a hug, holding him so tightly she sobbed on his shoulder. A confused Leo stood still for a moment, then slowly returned the embrace, gently rubbing her back. "I love you, Leo. I love you so much," Helena whispered through her tears. In her heart, Helena made a solemn vow. "You may not be my flesh and blood, Leo, but you are my son. I raised you. Your soul is mine. I will not let Eleanor or Jessica touch you, even if they are your biological family." But that love was now mixed with a terrible new fear. If Eleanor knew Helena had the confession letter, she would surely try to eliminate Mr. Miller, or even Leo, to erase all traces. And even more difficult, Helena now had to face Ryan. How could she take him back without breaking Leo's heart? Helena released her hug, looking at Leo with red eyes. "Leo, I need your help. Tomorrow, I want you to invite Ryan over again. Never mind what I said last night. Tell him I want to talk to him, privately." Leo looked hesitant. "But Mom, you were so angry yesterday." "Just do it, sweetheart. I have to fix something that's broken," Helena said firmly. That night, after Leo was asleep, Helena sat in her dark office. She held a small bottle containing a sample of Ryan's hair she had secretly taken from a comb left at the foundation office. She had also taken a sample of Leo's hair from his brush in the bathroom. She had decided on a small but very risky step. She would conduct a formal DNA test through an international lab that couldn't be bribed by Eleanor. She needed legitimate medical proof to supplement Mr. Miller's letter. But she realized one thing. Once those test results came back, she could never return to her old life. She would be starting an open war that could destroy the minds of both teenagers. Helena looked at photos of Ryan and Leo alternately. Her emotional pressure was at a boiling point. She held the key to the truth, but that truth was also dynamite, ready to blow up the happiness of Leo, the only thing she had possessed for the past 15 years. That morning, Helena's residence was cloaked in a suffocating silence. Even as the sun peeked through the curtains, the chill in Helena's heart refused to fade. The worn letter from Mr. Miller, now locked in her private safe, felt like a burning coal searing her conscience. Every time her eyes met Leo's, her chest ached. How could a mother not recognize her own flesh and blood for 15 years? Helena stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She saw a strong woman, a feared investor, but beneath it all, she felt like a traitor. She loved Leo with all her soul, yet she now knew the young man preparing breakfast downstairs was the seed of the woman who had destroyed her life. "Mom, the omelets are ready!" Leo's cheerful voice echoed from downstairs. Helena splashed her face with cold water. She had to act normal. She had to be the calm, protective Helena. She couldn't let Leo feel the tremors of fear running through her veins. Down in the dining room, Helena watched Leo arranging the plates. His movements were so gentle, a stark contrast to Jessica's coarse, explosive nature. Helena sat, forcing a smile. "You look pale, Mom. Did you have another sleepless night thinking about the partnership with Mr. Arrington?" Leo asked, handing her a glass of warm milk. "Just a lot of documents to review, sweetheart," Helena replied curtly, sipping her milk and avoiding prolonged eye contact. "Remember what I said last night. Invite Ryan here after school. Tell him I want to apologize for what happened in the rain." Leo nodded, though the furrow in his brow showed he was still confused by his mother's sudden change in attitude. "I already texted him. Mom, Ryan said he'll come. But he asked that Mr. Arrington and Grandma Eleanor don't find out." "Good. That's better," Helena whispered. That afternoon, the tension at Apex Investments was thicker than usual. Helena locked her office door. On her desk were two small, transparent plastic baggies. One contained strands of Leo's hair she'd taken from his brush that morning. The other was empty, waiting for strands of Ryan's. Maya entered through a secret connecting door, her face showing equal anxiety. "The lab in Singapore is ready, Helena. As soon as you get Ryan's sample, a special courier will take it on the afternoon flight. The results will be back in 3 days." 3 days, Helena murmured. 3 days to prove my entire life has been a massive lie. "Helena, you have to be prepared for anything," Maya warned, her voice softening. "If Ryan really is your son, how are you going to tell Leo? He idolizes you. You're his entire world." Helena closed her eyes tightly. "That's what scares me the most, Maya. I'm afraid that in gaining my biological son, I'll lose the child who has called me Mom all this time." The planned meeting arrived. That afternoon, Ryan came to Helena's house, his demeanor still arrogant, but his steps hesitant. He wore a black hoodie, trying to hide his face. Leo greeted him at the door and led him into the living room. Helena stood there, her heart racing wildly. Seeing Ryan up close after knowing Mr. Miller's secret made her want to run and embrace the teenager. She wanted to study every inch of his face, searching for a resemblance to herself she hadn't noticed before, blinded by her hatred for the Arrington family. "Sit down, Ryan," Helena said, her voice trembling slightly. Ryan sat on the sofa, his eyes darting around the elegant yet warm room. "I don't have much time. If you're going to insult me again like at the foundation office, get it over with." Helena moved closer, sitting beside Ryan, not across from him. "I don't want to insult you, Ryan. I want to apologize. I was too harsh on you the other night. I just didn't want you to get in trouble with your grandmother if they found out you were here." Ryan was silent, looking surprised to hear such a gentle tone from Helena, a tone he never got from Jessica or Eleanor. "They don't care about me. They only care if I embarrass the family name." Helena noticed a strand of hair about to fall from Ryan's forehead. This was her chance. With a very natural movement, as if tidying his messy bangs, Helena's hand moved. "Your hair is a mess," she whispered. With practiced fingers, she pinched 2 strands of his hair and pulled them out with a quick small tug. "Ow!" Ryan yelped, touching his forehead. "What was that for?" "Sorry. It must have gotten caught." Helena smiled calmly, though her palm was sweating. She hid the strands in her palm and quickly slipped them into her blazer pocket, which already contained a tissue. Leo entered with drinks, breaking the tension. "Have a drink, Ryan. Mom can get a little fussy about neatness." Helena stood up, unable to stay there any longer without breaking down. "You two talk. I have an important call to take upstairs." In her room, Helena immediately took out Ryan's hair and placed it in the prepared plastic baggie. Her hands shook violently as she labeled it. Sample B. She stared at the 2 baggies side by side. Sample A, Leo, and Sample B, Ryan. 2 teenagers, 2 switched fates. Helena collapsed to the floor, her back against the locked door. The sobs she had held in all day finally broke free, but she muffled her mouth so the sound wouldn't carry downstairs. She felt like a monster. She was manipulating both these boys for a truth that might destroy them all. If Ryan found out Helena was his biological mother, could he forgive her for acting so cold all this time? And Leo? Would he feel betrayed that Helena was secretly looking for his replacement? "Mom?" A gentle knock on the door made Helena jump. It was Leo. Ryan just left. Mr. Arrington picked him up at the end of the street. "Mom, are you okay? I thought I heard someone crying." Helena quickly wiped her tears, fixed her hair, and cleared her throat. "I'm fine, Leo. Just a bit of a cold. I'm getting changed. I'll be down in a minute." "Oh, okay. Don't forget to take your medicine. I left some on the dining table for you." Helena stared at the wooden door, heartbroken. Leo's kindness felt like a knife twisting in her gut. He loved her so sincerely, while she had just sent off DNA samples to prove that, biologically, he was nothing to her. That night, Helena handed the 2 samples to Maya in the dark backyard. "Send them now, Maya. Don't let anyone know," Helena ordered. "Are you sure, Helena? Once this courier leaves, there's no going back," Maya confirmed. Helena looked up at Leo's lit bedroom window. "I have to know the truth, Maya, even if that truth burns down the entire world I've built." After Maya left, Helena went back inside. She found Leo in the family room, looking at a photo of the 2 of them celebrating his 10th birthday overseas. "Mom," Leo called without turning. "No matter what happens, I'll always be your son, right? Why do I feel like you've been pushing me away lately?" Helena froze. Her emotional pressure reached its breaking point. She wanted to scream and tell him everything, but she could only walk over and stroke his hair. "I will never leave you, Leo. Never," she said, a promise that felt heavy and full of risk. She had made a small, risky decision that night. She would never cast Leo aside, no matter what the DNA test revealed. But that meant she had to be ready for the worst-case scenario, sharing her love with a Ryan who hated her, while keeping a massive secret from a Leo who adored her. A new internal war had begun. How could she be a mother to two sons destined to be enemies? The 3 days of waiting felt like 3 centuries in a cold hell for Helena. She couldn't eat properly. Every bite felt like swallowing gravel. She couldn't look Leo in the eye without feeling her chest tighten with a storm of conflicting emotions. This morning, a special diplomatic courier arrived at Apex Investments carrying a thick envelope with the seal of a renowned genetics lab from Singapore. Maya locked Helena's office door from the inside. The room was so quiet that the ticking of the wall clock sounded like hammer blows. "Helena, this is it," Maya whispered, placing the envelope on the vast oak desk. Her hand trembled slightly. "Do you want me to read it?" Helena slowly shook her head. Her face was as pale as paper, but her eyes held a fragile determination. "No, this is either my punishment or my prize. I have to see it for myself." With cold fingers, Helena tore the seal. She pulled out the crisp white pages inside. Her eyes immediately scanned the complex technical columns, searching for the percentage at the bottom. Probability of maternity. Sample B. Ryan, 99. 百分之99. Probability of maternity. Sample allow. 0%. The papers slipped from Helena's grasp, fluttering to the floor like a broken wing. She didn't scream. She froze, her body rigid as if her blood had turned to ice. A moment later, a small sob escaped her lips, followed by an explosion of tears. "Eleanor! That devil!" Helena groaned, her voice hoarse and wounded. She fell to her knees, covering her face with her hands. Her sobs filled the room. A lament for 15 years of longing, 15 years of misplaced devotion, and 15 years of humiliation she had swallowed whole. "My son! Ryan is my son, Maya!" Helena cried between sobs. "The baby I caressed in my womb, the one I prayed would grow into a good man. Now he's a broken child in their hands. Eleanor stole my son and used him as a shield for her greed." Helena mourned every lost second. She remembered how she had often looked at Ryan with scorn, called him rude, and driven him out into the rain, when all along, every drop of sweat and every tear she had shed overseas was to build a future for the child she thought was Leo. And Leo? Helena looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "He's Jessica's son, the son of the woman who crawled into my husband's bed and helped get me thrown out like a dog. I raised the seed of my betrayer with my own hands." Maya knelt beside Helena, trying to comfort her. "But you love Leo, Helena. He's the child you shaped yourself." "That's what's destroying me, Maya." Helena pounded the floor in frustration. "How can fate be so cruel? I love Leo, who is my enemy's son, while my own biological child looks at me with hatred because he was raised by a monster." Eleanor didn't just switch babies, she switched their souls. Helena returned home that afternoon with a shattered spirit. She saw Leo in the front yard, watering her favorite flowers. His movements were so gentle, so full of care. He turned and smiled brightly when he saw her car pull in. "Mom, you're home. Look, the white roses have bloomed." Helena got out of the car, but her legs felt like lead. She looked at Leo's face. She saw Adrian's features there. And God, why was she only noticing it now? The curve of his lips, so much like Jessica's. For 15 years, love had blinded her to this biological reality. "Mom, are you crying?" Leo immediately dropped the hose and approached with a worried face. He reached out to touch her forehead to check her temperature. In a reflex action, Helena recoiled. She couldn't help it. The image of Jessica laughing mockingly at the gala flashed in her mind as she saw Leo's hand. Leo froze, his hand hanging in the air. The hurt on his face was palpable. "Mom, did I do something wrong? Why are you looking at me like I'm a stranger?" Helena turned away, hiding the sobs that were about to break free again. "You are a stranger, Leo. You are not my blood. You are the son of the woman who destroyed my life," she screamed in her head. But at the same time, another part of her conscience whispered, "But he is the child who cared for you when you were starving on the streets of London. He is the child who hugged you when you cried over Adrian." "I just have a terrible headache, Leo. I need some time alone." "Don't come into my room until tomorrow morning," Helena said with a forced, cold voice. She walked into the house, past Leo, without looking back. Inside her room, Helena locked the door and slid down behind it. She clutched her chest, which felt like it was being pierced by 1,000 needles. Now, every laugh from Leo would be a reminder of Adrian's betrayal. Every achievement of Leo's would be a reminder of Ryan's loss. Helena felt her world split in two. One side demanded she seize Ryan immediately and throw Leo back to his biological family as revenge. The other side, the side that had been a mother for 15 years, screamed at the thought of letting go of the young man who had become her very breath. That night, Helena couldn't sleep. She took out a small jewelry box containing the baby bracelet the hospital had given her, the only thing she had left. She caressed it. Suddenly, she heard a commotion from outside. Peeking through the curtains, she saw Adrian's car parked in front of Eleanor's house and Ryan getting out, yelling at his father. "I'm not going in! I hate this house! I hate all of you!" Ryan shouted. He then ran across the street and sat on the curb, right in front of Helena's gate, burying his face in his knees. Helena watched the boy from the second floor. That was her son, her flesh and blood, crying in the dark, separated only by an iron fence. She wanted to run down, open the gate, and say, "Come here, son. This is your real home. I am your mother." But in the living room, she heard the footsteps of Leo, getting a drink of water in the kitchen, still awake because he was worried about her strange behavior. Helena was trapped in a terrible dilemma. If she embraced Ryan now, she would have to destroy Leo. If she kept Leo, she would be letting Ryan rot in hatred. She made a small but risky decision that night. She took her phone and sent a short text to Adrian, who was still standing confused in front of his gate. "Let Ryan stay at my house tonight. I'll watch over him. Don't let Jessica or your mother come get him if you don't want the secrets of the past 15 years exposed right now." Helena put down her phone. She knew that by bringing Ryan into her house while Leo was also there, she was lighting a match in a powder keg. Her emotional pressure was at its peak. She was about to put her two sons under the same roof, with neither of them knowing they were standing on the ruins of a swapped destiny. Ryan's presence in Helena's house that night created a suffocating atmosphere. In the living room, Ryan slept on the sofa, his face still marked by anger. Upstairs, Leo lay awake with a million questions he didn't dare ask. Helena herself stood in the dark hallway, looking from one teenager to the other. The DNA results in her desk drawer seemed to pulse, radiating a truth capable of incinerating anyone who touched it. "Ryan is my son," Helena whispered to her reflection in the window. "And Leo? Leo is a daily reminder of his mother's betrayal." The love that had been holy for Leo for 15 years was now contaminated with bitterness. Every time Helena looked at Leo, she saw Jessica. But every time she looked at Ryan, she saw her own failure as a biological mother who had allowed her child to become a broken soul. Helena realized one thing. She couldn't fix this destiny with love alone. She had to destroy the source of the infection first, Eleanor. The next day, a formal business meeting was held at Apex Investments. Helena deliberately invited Eleanor personally, ignoring Jessica and Adrian. She wanted to confront the architect of her suffering head-on. Eleanor arrived with a fractured elegance. Her usually steady steps now dragged slightly, and the hand gripping her silver cane trembled. In her eyes was a flicker of fear she tried to mask with upper-class arrogance. "You asked me to come without my son, Helena? Is this a new form of intimidation?" Eleanor's voice was hoarse. Helena sat in her executive chair, looking at Eleanor with the calmness of a predator. 2 cups of steaming chamomile tea were on the table. "Just a casual chat, Mrs. Arrington." As one woman to another who understands the importance of bloodlines, Eleanor choked for a moment, then awkwardly sipped her tea. Bloodlines are everything to our family, you know that." "Of course," Helena replied, her lips curving into a satirical smile. "I was just reading an article about hospital procedures in the past. It's fascinating how babies could be switched, whether by negligence or by design. What do you think? At Mercy Maternity Hospital 15 years ago, was their security system that poor?" Eleanor's face went pale. The cup in her hand clattered loudly against its saucer. "Why are you asking about things that are long past? That hospital is closed. The past has nothing to do with our business today. The past is never truly dead, madam. It just hides in the shadows." Helena leaned forward, staring into Eleanor's now watery eyes. "Ryan slept at my house last night. Did you know? When he sleeps, his face looks so much like the childhood photos of Adrian I used to have. Strange, isn't it? Meanwhile, Leo, my son, sometimes I feel he has a composure I lack, but one that is very familiar to someone in your past." Eleanor began to feel suffocated. The spacious room suddenly felt small. She started to hallucinate, hearing the cries of babies echoing from the corners of the room, the same cries that had haunted her on the night of the swap. She saw the shadow of the nurse she had bribed standing behind Helena's chair, staring at her with empty eyes. "Enough!" Eleanor rose with what little strength she had left. "I'm not here to listen to your nonsense. Sit down, Mrs. Arrington. We haven't discussed the Foundation's shares yet." Helena's voice remained low but full of authority. "Or are you too afraid to face your own shadow? You don't look well. Has Mr. Miller been appearing in your dreams lately?" That name was the final blow. Eleanor staggered, gripping the edge of the table. Her hallucinations grew wilder. She saw the marble floor beneath her turn into a pool of dark, birthing blood. She felt her breath catch in her throat. You don't know anything," Eleanor hissed, but her voice had lost its bite. "I know more than you can imagine." Helena rose, walked around the table, and stood directly behind Eleanor, whispering words that nearly made the old woman faint. "The truth is like water, madam. It will always find a way to seep out, no matter how small the crack you make. And now, that crack has become a chasm." Eleanor rushed out of the room without another word, hurrying toward the elevator. Inside the mirrored elevator, she saw her own reflection, but what she saw was an old woman whose hands were covered in black mud, a symbol of her sin of swapping two lives. Helena stood at the window, watching Eleanor's car speed away erratically. She felt a cold satisfaction, but her soul was still roaring. She had thrown the bait, and Eleanor's paranoia was consuming her. Yet this attack had also wounded Helena. Every question she asked about the switched babies reminded her that she was still embracing a child that wasn't hers. When she returned home that afternoon, she found Leo and Ryan sitting awkwardly in the living room. Ryan was fidgety, while Leo tried to make conversation. "Mom, Ryan was just about to leave," Leo reported. "Grandma Eleanor called him, screaming incoherently on the phone." Helena looked at Ryan, feeling a strong urge to keep him there, to protect him from the unstable Eleanor. But she knew if she did, Eleanor would use what little power she had left to report her for kidnapping. Again. "Go home, Ryan," Helena said softly. "Take care of yourself. And remember, my door is always open for you." Ryan stared at Helena for a long time. "Why are you suddenly being nice to me? Are you planning something to take down my grandmother through me?" Ryan's sharp question pierced Helena's heart. "My own son doesn't trust me," she thought bitterly. Ryan left with a huff, leaving Helena and Leo in a painful silence. "Mom," Leo called, his voice trembling. "I saw the envelope from Singapore in your bag this morning when I was looking for the house keys. It was a DNA test, wasn't it?" Helena froze. She never imagined Leo would invade her privacy so deeply. She turned slowly to face him. His eyes were glassy with unshed tears. "Leo, that's none of your business," Helena replied, trying to keep her voice from breaking. "None of my business?" Leo laughed bitterly, a sound she had rarely heard from him. "You've been distant ever since that result came. You look at Ryan like he's a long-lost treasure, and you look at me like I'm dust. What were the results, Mom? Am I not your son? Am I the child of the people you hate?" Helena felt her world crumble for a second time. She wasn't ready for this confrontation. She wanted to lie, but the honesty she had built with Leo for 15 years held her tongue. "Leo, listen to me. Don't call yourself Mom if you even have to question who I am," Leo shouted, then ran to his room and slammed the door. Helena sank to the floor of the living room, alone. The emotional pressure was unbearable. On one hand, she had successfully broken Eleanor mentally. On the other, she had just shattered the heart of the child she had raised with all her love. She made a small, risky decision that night. She wouldn't chase after Leo to explain. Instead, she took the DNA test documents and slid them under his bedroom door. She would let Leo read the truth for himself. Helena realized she could no longer control all the hearts involved. She chose to detonate the bomb now, rather than let it fester in uncertainty, even if it meant Leo might leave her forever. That night, Helena's house felt like a radiation zone. Behind a locked door, Leo was confronting the papers. Helena had just given him papers that held both poison and truth. Helena herself sat in the darkened living room, accompanied only by the moonlight. Her hands were still shaking. Giving Leo those results was the most brutal thing she had ever done, more brutal than surviving on the streets of London. Her search for quiet was shattered by the roar of a car engine stopping abruptly in front of her house. The headlights were blinding. Helena stood up and peeked through the curtains. Adrian stumbled out of the car, his face contorted, his eyes red not with alcohol, but with a rage that had broken his sanity. Before he could ring the bell, Helena opened the door. She didn't want a commotion to wake Leo, whose soul was already shattered, or Ryan, who might be watching from across the street. "Helena," Adrian's voice was a raw, trembling whisper. He clutched a phone, its screen still lit. "You were right. All this time, you were right about Jessica." Helena stood motionless in the doorway, her face as cold as ice. "Go home, Adrian. It's past midnight." She did it again, Helena. All this time, she wasn't just draining the foundation for designer bags. She was with another man. A much younger man. I found their text conversations and the hotel bills she disguised as foundation expenses. Adrian fell to his knees on the front porch, right at Helena's feet. "I was a fool. I betrayed you 15 years ago for a woman who doesn't even know the meaning of loyalty." Helena looked down at the top of Adrian's head with infinite disgust. Once, she would have given anything to hear this confession. Once, she had dreamed of him kneeling and begging for forgiveness to restore her dignity. But now, knowing Adrian had also played a part in the loss of 15 years with her son, this apology was just meaningless noise. "Get up, Adrian. Don't humiliate yourself any further at my house," Helena said flatly. "Helena, I'm begging you, give me a second chance. Let's start over. I'll divorce Jessica. We can be a family again. There's Ryan and there's Leo. We can raise them together. I need you to help me out of this black hole my mother and Jessica created." Adrian looked up, tears streaming down his face. Helena laughed. It was the most painful laugh Adrian had ever heard, full of bitterness and contempt. "Family?" Helena bent down slightly, staring into Adrian's eyes. "You talk about family after you let your mother throw me out like trash? You talk about a second chance after you let your wife mentally abuse your own son? I didn't know Jessica was that bad, Helena. You didn't know because you chose to close your eyes, Adrian. You were too comfortable in a cocoon of lies because it was easier than facing the fact that you destroyed the woman who truly loved you," Helena hissed. "And now you come to me because you found out your wife is cheating. You're not here because you love me, but because you just realized you threw away a diamond for a piece of garbage." Adrian was silent, Helena's words striking the core of his pride. "Listen carefully, Adrian," Helena continued, her voice lowering to a menacing whisper. "You didn't just throw me away. You threw away something far more valuable than a wife's loyalty. You threw your own flesh and blood into the trash, and you worshipped the son who was actually— no, you're not ready to hear that yet." Adrian frowned, confused. "What do you mean? Ryan is my son. I love him, even if he's difficult." Helena smiled mysteriously, a smile that made the hair on Adrian's neck stand up. "You're so proud of Ryan because he looks like you physically. That's your biggest mistake. You judge everything by its cover. You threw away the jewel that held your soul just because his appearance didn't meet your arrogant mother's standards." Helena thought of Leo, the boy she thought was hers, who was actually the biological son of Adrian and Jessica, the child Eleanor had cast out for being weak, while her own son, Ryan, was stolen to be the fake prince. Go home, Adrian. Settle things with your adulterous wife, but don't you ever dream of coming back into my life. In my eyes, you are no longer the man I loved, but merely a business partner heading toward bankruptcy, both financially and morally. Helena slammed the door, leaving Adrian frozen in emptiness on her porch. Inside, she leaned against the door. The silence returned, but this time it was more terrifying. She turned toward the stairs and saw Leo standing there. He wasn't crying. His face was a blank mask, as if all emotion had been drained from him after reading the DNA results. In his hands, he held the crumpled papers. "So, that man who was just kneeling out there, he's my biological father?" Leo asked, his voice sounding unnervingly mature for his age. Helena moved toward him, her hand hesitating to touch his shoulder. "Leo, And Mrs. Jessica, the woman who tried to frame you at the school, she's my biological mother," Leo continued, his eyes now fixed on Helena with a terrifying emptiness. "And Ryan, the troubled kid who always made you sad, he's your real son." Helena couldn't answer. She could only nod slowly. Leo looked at the papers in his hand, then tore them in half. "So I was the mistake they threw away, and you picked me up just to use me as a weapon for your revenge." "No, Leo, I love you." "I didn't know the truth until a few days ago," Helena tried to convince him, but the words sounded weak even to her own ears. "But you know now," Leo retorted sharply. "And now you look at me with guilt, not love. You see, Mrs. Jessica's face in mine, don't you?" Helena felt her heart being squeezed. She wanted to deny it, but she knew there was truth in his words. Ever since the results came back, she had been subconsciously searching for traces of Jessica in his face. Leo walked down the stairs, past Helena, and toward the kitchen. He grabbed his motorcycle keys from a hook near the back door. "Where are you going, Leo? It's late," Helena cried out in panic. "I need some air, miss." "Helena," Leo replied without turning back. The use of Miss Helena instead of Mom was a stab to her heart. "Leo, wait! It's dangerous out there." "Dangerous? My life has been a wreck since the day I was born. There's nothing more dangerous than the reality that I'm the son of the people you hate," Leo said coldly, before disappearing into the night with the roar of his motorcycle. Helena stood alone in the silent living room. Adrian had just left with his regret, and now Leo had left with his heartbreak. Her emotional pressure peaked until she felt she couldn't breathe. She had just won a battle against Adrian, but she had lost her life's anchor. She made a small, risky decision that night. She picked up her phone and called Maya. "Maya, get the surveillance team ready. Keep an eye on Leo, but don't stop him. Let him go wherever he wants. And one more thing," Helena took a deep breath. "Leak the information about Jessica's affair and her location tonight to a few gossip reporters we know. If Adrian wants destruction, give him total annihilation. I won't let Jessica have a chance to get near Leo while he's this vulnerable." Helena knew that by involving the media, she was dragging the Arrington family name and, by extension, the names of Leo and Ryan through the mud. But she was already in too deep. She would make sure that when the dust of this war settled, she would be the only one left standing, no matter how many hearts she had to break along the way. The 25th anniversary gala of the Arrington Family Foundation was supposed to be a night of triumph. The luxurious hotel ballroom was filled with white lilies, expensive perfume, and the clinking of crystal glasses. But to Helena, every grand decoration looked like a tombstone covering 15 years of buried truths. She stood in a corner, wearing a blood-red silk gown that starkly contrasted with the all-white theme. She watched the elite crowd donors, officials, and socialites who had long worshipped Eleanor as a humanitarian hero. On the stage, Eleanor sat in her chair of honor, her face rigid, forcing a smile. Beside her, Jessica fidgeted, constantly fixing her hair and glaring at the guests. Adrian stood at the podium, delivering a speech about family legacy and integrity. His words sounded like a satirical comedy to Helena. "Mom, please don't do this." Leo's soft whisper startled her. Helena turned. Leo stood behind her in a perfectly fitted tuxedo, his eyes swollen. Since the night of the DNA discovery, he had barely spoken, moving like a body without a soul, trapped in the reality of being the son of the woman he despised most. This isn't just about revenge, Leo. This is about restoring a stolen reputation and putting you and Ryan back where you belong, Helena replied, her voice cold, though her hands trembled within the folds of her gown. Where I belong is by your side, Mom, not with that demonic family, Leo retorted sharply. If you do this now, you'll destroy my life and Ryan's at the same time. Helena fell silent. This was a double-edged sword. She knew she would hurt Leo. But allowing the lie to continue was another form of betrayal to Ryan, her biological son, who was now sitting in the front row with a bored expression, unaware that his father was praising a legacy that wasn't rightfully his. And now, as a surprise for tonight's celebration, Adrian's voice from the podium cut through Helena's thoughts. Our primary partner, Miss Helena from Apex Investments, has prepared a video reflecting on the Foundation's journey. Please, Miss Helena. The ballroom lights dimmed. Helena walked toward the stage with steady steps, each one a drumbeat of war. As she passed Eleanor, she could see the old woman holding her breath. Eleanor must have sensed something was wrong, but her pride prevented her from stopping the event. Helena didn't go to the podium to speak. She stood beside the giant screen. Tonight, we talk about legacy. But legacy isn't just about money. It's about the honesty passed down from parents to their children. She pressed a button on the remote in her hand. The screen lit up, but it didn't show photos of orphanages or charity events. It showed a grainy, poorly lit video. In it, Mr. Miller sat in a hospital bed, his face pale, his voice trembling. Mrs. Arrington, she forced me to guard the back door that night. She ordered a nurse to switch Miss Helena's baby boy with Miss Jessica's premature infant. She said Helena must not have a legitimate heir. She framed Miss Helena for adultery so the healthy baby could be claimed as Jessica's son, as Ryan. A horrifying silence fell over the ballroom. Hundreds of guests were frozen. Adrian's jaw dropped, his eyes darting from the screen to his mother, who was now shaking uncontrollably. What is this video? Stop it! This is slander! Jessica shrieked, her voice piercing the silence. She tried to run toward the operator, but Maya and her security team had already blocked the way. Helena didn't stop. She pressed the next button. The DNA test results appeared on the giant screen. The comparison between Ryan's, Leo's, and Helena's samples was displayed clearly with the official stamp of the International Lab. Probability of maternity, Ryan, 99.99%, Helena read aloud, her voice echoing through every corner of the hall. And the child you threw away 15 years ago, the one you called trash and left to suffer in an orphanage, he is here tonight. Leo, Helena pointed toward Leo. Eleanor tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She began to cough, clutching her chest. The hallucinations of crying babies that had haunted her for days now felt terrifyingly real in her ears.